This is one of the world's most expensive weapons. The F-35 program that includes the production and maintenance of thousands of jets over the next 5 decades.
In a quiet office park called Green Park in Reading, England, 2 organizations now sit on the same floor. One is the Global Combat Air Program International Government Organization. The other is Edgewing, a trilateral industrial joint venture owned in exact thirds by BAE Systems of the United Kingdom, Leonardo of Italy, and the Japan Aircraft Industrial Enhancement Company. Their job is to build a 6th-generation fighter for 3 nations on a 13-year clock. In April 2026, those 2 organizations exchanged their first unified contract, £686 million, roughly 905 million United States dollars, awarded to Edgewing, signed off by JIGO, intended to fund core engineering for a flying demonstrator in 2027 and initial operating capability by 2035. Domestic Japanese reporting, Nikkei, Asahi Shimbun, Mainichi Shimbun, says Tokyo intends to buy roughly 200 of these airframes, more than double the original mandate. But the real story is not the number. It is what the trilateral architecture itself is, and whether 13 years is enough time. The headline and the 3 tests. Welcome back to the channel. The headline is Japan's 200 airframe procurement of the GCAP 6th-generation fighter by 2035. That number is real in the budgetary signals, in the industrial planning, and in the political will Tokyo has mobilized in 3 years. But it is not yet a declared program of record. 3 structural tests sit on top of this commitment. First, whether the trilateral parity model can survive its first major intellectual property dispute. Second, whether a 13-year clean-sheet fighter timeline is achievable. Third, whether Japanese political will sustain the budget across 3 election cycles and 2 prime ministers. This video walks the architecture. Then it walks the friction. The architecture in Reading start with what is already legally binding. On December 9, 2022, the United Kingdom, Italy, and Japan announced the merger of the British-led Tempest project and Japan's Mitsubishi FX program. The result was the Global Combat Air Program. On December 14, 2023, the 3 nations signed the JIGO Establishment Convention. The treaty entered into force in December 2024. JIGO is headquartered in Reading, England. Its chief executive is Masami Oka, the former Japanese Vice Minister of Defense for International Affairs. Tokyo's leadership of this organization is the political concession that anchored Japanese commitment. The execution arm is Edgewing. It launched as a joint venture on June 20, 2025, owned in equal 33.3% shares by BAE Systems, Leonardo, and the Japan Aircraft Industrial Enhancement Company. Its first chief executive is Marco Zoff, formerly head of Leonardo's aircraft division. That assignment was Italy's concession. The geometry settles in 3 pieces. The United Kingdom hosts the geographic center of gravity. Japan holds sovereign program leadership. Italy runs corporate execution. The fleet math is more complex. The Japan Air Self-Defense Force operates roughly 91 Mitsubishi F-2 fighters, 200 F-15J Eagles in mixed condition, and 33 operational F-35s. The original FX program was designed to replace the F-2 fleet 1-for-1, approximately 90 airframes. The reported expansion to 200 recasts GCAP as a holistic air superiority recapitalization. It is also the replacement for the oldest F-15J echelons, the airframes no longer viable for further upgrade. This is the procurement signal. It is not yet locked. The aircraft was unveiled as a full-scale concept model at the Farnborough International Airshow in July 2024. Its delta wing spans roughly 16.5 meters, about 1/3 larger than the Eurofighter Typhoon and approaching the size of an F-15. The geometry is deliberate. GCAP is being designed with Pacific distances in mind. Massive internal fuel, heavy weapons payload, long unrefueled combat radius. The work is divided across 3 pillars. First, the airframe. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries is the Japanese apex integrator, alongside BAE Systems at Wharton and Leonardo in Italy. Final assembly of the Japanese order occurs on Japanese soil, securing sovereign maintenance and overhaul capability. Second, propulsion. The Engine Consortium combines IHI Corporation of Japan, Rolls-Royce of the United Kingdom, and Avio Aero of Italy. In September 2025, the 3 transitioned into a fully integrated collaboration to deliver a next-generation adaptive cycle engine. It must sustain supersonic flight while generating enough electrical power for advanced sensors, electronic warfare, and potentially directed energy weapons. Third, sensors. The Integrated Sensing and Non-Kinetic Effects and Integrated Communication System, ISANKE and ICS, is being delivered by the GCAP Electronics Evolution Consortium, G2E, formed in September 2025. Mitsubishi Electric leads on the Japanese side. Leonardo United Kingdom, Leonardo Italy, and the Italian Electronic Warfare Specialist ELT Group hold the European side. And the aircraft is not designed to fight alone. GCAP is engineered around manned-unmanned teaming. The Japanese Ministry of Defense allocated 50 billion yen, roughly 320 million United States dollars, in fiscal year 2025 for unmanned aerial systems to operate alongside the manned fighter. Underneath it all sits an open systems architecture, software upgrades decoupled from hardware refresh cycles. The clearest indictment of the F-35's rigid block upgrade history. What 200 airframes means for the Pacific. If the figure holds, the implications are substantial. Japan sits at the geographic anchor of the first island chain. By 2035, Allied air combat mass in the Western Pacific transitions to a heavily networked sixth-generation architecture. 200 Japanese GCAP airframes, roughly 185 United States Air Force F-47s, existing F-35 fleets across Japan, South Korea, and Australia, and the autonomous collaborative platforms operating with them. The People's Liberation Army Air Force is paying attention. Chinese state media, particularly the Global Times, has consistently downplayed GCAP while highlighting Beijing's own sixth-generation efforts. The tentatively designated J-36 and J-50. The carrier-based J-35A is already entering serial production. A networked Japanese sixth-generation fleet integrated with United States F-47s directly threatens the anti-access envelope China has spent 2 decades constructing. The political shift behind GCAP is just as structural. In 2014, Japan reinterpreted Article 9 to permit collective self-defense. In December 2022, Tokyo published the National Security Strategy, the National Defense Strategy, and the Defense Buildup Program, formally declaring a counterstrike posture. In early 2024, the Diet authorized an exception to the 3 principles on transfer of defense equipment to permit GCAP exports. Mass production of 200 lethal sixth-generation fighters and their export to qualified third nations was politically impossible a decade ago. It is now policy. Now the friction. 5 structural risks sit underneath the headline. First, the figure itself. 200 is reported, not declared. The Ministry of Defense has not locked it as program of record. The conservative original mandate was approximately 90. If the budget tightens, the order can shrink back toward 90 with no treaty violation. Second, history. Multinational European combat aircraft programs do not have a clean track record. The Eurofighter Typhoon ran a decade late and billions over budget. The NH-90 and A400M slipped years past schedule. Each failed the same way. National participants prioritized equal returns, the European concept of juste retour over engineering efficiency. Third, friction is already public. In late January 2026, Italian Defense Minister Guido Crosetto, in an interview with Defense News, openly attacked the United Kingdom for withholding critical technologies from its GCAP partners. His exact word was, quote, madness. He argued British secrecy served as, quote, a huge favor to the Russians and the Chinese. That is a sitting cabinet minister of one founding partner publicly accusing another of damaging the program. Fourth, the engine. Developing a clean sheet adaptive cycle engine is among the hardest challenges in modern aerospace. The United States has spent 2 decades and tens of billions on the same technology through programs that have repeatedly slipped. Asking IHI, Rolls-Royce, and Avio Aero to integrate their design philosophies on a 13-year clock is an extreme ask. If propulsion slips, the 2027 demonstrator slips. If the demonstrator slips, the 2035 IOC follows. Fifth, political durability. Japan's record fiscal year 2026 defense budget of 9.04 trillion yen, 58 billion United States dollars, was approved in December 2025 under Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. It executes a 43.5 trillion yen, 5-year defense buildup program. That plan ends in 5 years. It then has to be renewed by a future government in a different fiscal environment. Compare the broader Western counter-architecture. The United States Air Force F-47, awarded to Boeing in March 2025, is targeting first flight in 2028, with IOC projected to slip to the mid-2030s. The Franco-German-Spanish FCAS program is now projected toward 2040, meaning GCAP is winning the European sixth-generation race by default. None of these risks are fatal. All of them are real. The question is no longer whether GCAP will be built. It will be. The question is which version arrives in 2035. On one road, JIGO holds its trilateral parity. The United Kingdom shares enough intellectual property to keep Italy and Japan inside the tent. The adaptive cycle engine reaches its 2027 demonstrator on time. Japanese political will stays intact across 2 prime ministers and a budget renewal. The 200 figure converts from press reporting into program of record. By 2035, Japan fields a sixth-generation fleet that, combined with the F-47, structurally rebalances the Western Pacific. On the other road, the Crosetto pattern repeats. National interests pull harder than the joint venture. The engine slips. The 200 figure drifts back to 90. The F-47 slips into the late 2030s. The early 2030s open with a real capability gap. The architecture is real. The political will, in 2026, is real. The treaty, the joint venture, the budget, the engine consortium, the sensor consortium, all of these exist. Japan secured the sovereign leadership. The United Kingdom secured the industrial geography. Italy secured the corporate execution. The remaining variable is whether the parity holds long enough to put 206th-generation fighters on Japanese flight lines by 2035.